Hello, my name is Dan, one half of the Francis brothers. What we're doing here, and I have to forgive anyone watching this, I do have a cold, so hopefully I'm not too annoying here. A little bit of stuffiness. So, as the title says, this is how you can make a really quick, kind of quick and dirty version of a alien landscape using actually just a still image. This is some footage I shot in Arizona last winter, and I've just actually been sort of perusing some of the footage, and I like all these cactuses. We don't have cactuses in BC. On the island here, Vancouver Island, there's very little cacti. So to me, this, cacti are very are alien. So what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna find a frame that I like and that's kind of in focus. This footage is kind of sort of a little shaky, but what I'm going to do is actually just grab a still image out of this little clip here, and yeah, that looks good. So what I'm going to do is just go and freeze frame it. So there you go. It's just basically a photograph now, which is, it's not ideal. If you can get obviously some moving footage, that'd be great. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a little bit. I like to add on any still image when you're working in After Effects. I like to add a little bit of noise because you want to kind of get away obviously from that static look, and if you probably won't be able to see it in this video, but it is got a little bit of grain in there, a little noise, so it just makes it a little bit more alive. You want your footage to look as alive as possible, that you're not actually looking at a photograph. So what I'm going to do here now is actually make a quick mask around the cactus and sort of the foreground. I'm going to break it into the foreground and background. These masks can be tedious, especially around little things that have some detail in it. Just be grateful that you're not rotoscoping frame by frame this moving footage. So now once I got the mask done, I'm going to duplicate, and it's a really simple thing here. You duplicate the footage, in this case like this image, and because I just did the mask there, you don't have to redo the mask. Save a lot of time here. You just invert the mask, so now you have the background is separated from the foreground. I'm going to put a tiny little blur on the mask because by default masks are 0 frames of blur, so it's very like a very harsh line. But I find you don't want to go crazy with some cases with the blurry mask, too blurry, because it looks a little too fake. So it's kind of like that sweet spot. I like to do just a few pixels. So what I'm doing now is I'm turning those 2 layers into 3D. This is very important to get, because we're actually going to make a camera move with this too. It's not just going to stay a static image. So it's going to be, here I'm moving the 2 layers in the 3D space. So I've added a camera and then also a null object here. And a camera. So the camera is going to be parented to the null object. So whatever I do with this null is the camera move. It's it's kind of like a versatile way to move the camera. A little less clunky than moving it through the camera. I find the camera properties. So I'm just going to have like a little, kind of a slide. It's just a subtle move. But just any kind of movement I find in any of these images that are static, that start out static at least, give a little bit of movement. And if you're moving in a 3D space like what we're doing here and splitting up the layers, it'll look, somewhat convincing. Obviously, this is just a quick and dirty sort of version of this. I mean, you can finesse this and make it look very, very good. Sort of to the sort of untrained eye, you could get away with it. a fun little way to do like a very low budget, sci-fi kind of alien short film, or anything you'd like. I kind of like that little move. It's subtle. It's slow, but so I've pre-composed the background here, so I can kind of mess around with the background, because I don't like how I need basically a flat background without this cactus stuff, and the foregrounds are still in the background image, because it's basically what we remembered. We duplicated the same image. So I'm just gonna get a solid, and sort of, this is just like a quick and dirty. Obviously, if this was like a very important project, it wouldn't be just a solid color. I would try to get, a little bit more, and if I had more time, I'd get more into obviously some detail in the mountains here and stuff. But right now, I'm just gonna make it a solid image. And you'd be amazed by how much you can actually get away with, because you always, you want to do, if you can get away with something that takes way less time, go ahead and do it, right? You don't want to spend something like a crazy amount of time on something when you could just, it's all about saving time too. So here I'm just manipulating the layers again. I'm trying to get that background to kind of look okay. It's starting to look okay. See, the mountains in the background should move pretty slow. If you can barely register that they're actually moving, I believe that's called a parallax effect. I believe the foreground moving faster than the background, obviously. That's what's really nice about moving these static images in 3D space. You can really, you can push it. You can make it fairly convincing. Again, with like what you can do with some of the technology now. Again, just a tool. It's all about your imagination, but you can make some fairly convincing stuff with just, basically backyard filmmaking. So that's looking okay. Still pretty rough. So I'm duplicating that background again, and what I'm gonna try to do here is make a kind of middle layer. So I have a foreground and the mountain background, but I'm going to use the mountain background and kind of have a sort of a middle mountain, just using the same mountain that I had. But if you manipulate it just enough, it might register properly as another set of sort of sub mountains, sort of like a little valley. That's the thing. Just go nuts. You can just if you have a lot of time, you can just manipulate the hell out of this and make something pretty cool. This is just a real quick me quickly doing this, and I'm not an After Effects pro, and if I can do this, anyone can do this. Yeah, that sort of works all right. I like how the sort of the gray solid, and stuff like this happens too, like the sort of the serendipitous things where the gray to me kind of looks a little bit almost like a fog in this kind of valley. So like there you go. I have a solid gray that kind of registers. It's fine. Like I don't have to necessarily put a ton of detail into that area, and it gives it a little bit more depth. But that was actually an accident. Don't deny some happy accidents that can happen, right? So what I'm actually going to do, I'm looking at this really cool thing. It's Colorama, and this is where it really turns into. Now let's get into the alien stuff here, because that just looks like Arizona still. So this Colorama is very cool. You can just select some presets. I think I'm just going to use presets, kind of like this. Kind of looks cool. It looks like an intro sequence to some kind of old Western, right? No, Rifleman. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I like this. It's almost kind of like Mars. That definitely looks alien. That's not Arizona anymore. Although they have Arizonian cacti. That's where the cacti came from. This cool planet, right? Yeah, I like this look. It's look this kind of sort of hot, arid look. All right, that's cool. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna just dial down the opacity a little bit, or the blend actually, blend with the original. What I did there actually, I did a adjustment adjustment layer, and threw that colorama on there. If you saw that, so I just duplicating the cactus here, and pushing another one way up to the foreground even more, just to give it a little bit extra depth. There you go. And see, I took off the third prong of this cactus just to make it look like sort of its own a different cactus. You got to really watch that when you duplicate. Like, you kind of need to manipulate it in some ways. Sometimes I'll horizontally flip images, but with this, I found with the sun, you can see the light is kind of definitely coming from a certain direction. So if you horizontally flipped it, it's gonna be the sun's gonna be on the wrong side, the light. So you got to watch that. You don't. Some people may not be that picky, but I find if you have more of a flat image that doesn't have a defined like light source, that you can get away with horizontally flipping. Therefore, your duplication of a layer is going to look, somewhat unique to the original layer. So here I'm just making the background a little bit bigger because I find that if you saw on the camera preview, it kind of cuts off at the very end. So I'm just going to make that. I'm just going to cheat here and just zoom it up a bit. Just tweaking the background a little more here. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding an expression to the null object. That null is my controller, my camera controller. And I'm just adding a little wiggle, and I'm just kind of tweaking the numbers because I didn't like it how the camera was moving very flat. It looked like artificial. Wiggle can give you that little bit more of a slightly like jiggle, like more of a natural move. Again, if this was like a project I was spending some time on, there is something I've used over the years, and it's basically putting a dot on a dot on a wall and actually filming possibly a couple dots actually, and filming sort of like a camera move, or just a camera little shake on that, and actually importing that. I'll do that on a separate tutorial, but basically it gives it like the natural camera move is actually in your footage here. I have done that in the past, and I probably would have done that for this if time permitted. But the wiggle works for this. Just gives it a little bit more of a natural movement. A little bit more of a randomness, I guess. If you actually just tweak the numbers on the wiggle, there's two numbers, and I always forget what the numbers do. I just go by feel. I just change the numbers but you can look into what they actually mean. One of them is how much wiggle per second or something. I can't remember. So what I'm gonna do now is, this is the fun part. The sky is pretty boring, although it looks quite alien still. I have over the years, if you shoot enough sci-fi miniatures and stuff, you have kind of a collection, which is kind of nice little library. So this is stuff I've shot before. Last year, it was like sort of like some Milky Way cosmic stuff, and this I'm gonna try to put this kind of cool alien landscape, or not landscape, sort of like a space, this into the background. So that's kind of like weird alien sky. And again, you want this to be a 3D layer. I actually need to put that into I'm going to need to put this into the pre-comp background. And this is what I'll do now. But yeah, this could look cool. Just gonna quickly do a little mask around. What I would do is normally is probably put a mask around the mountain here, and take the background out, that sort of the original blue background, but I'll just do the other way around for now and do the actual mask on the weird cosmic sky. It's not ideal because if you move, the way I'm doing it here is it's not ideal because if you move that sky, you're going to have to move the mask. This is me being lazy, but at the same time, would have paid the price if I had to move around the sky, and I'm just going to constantly move that mask. You want to only have to do the mask once and then move the background for obvious reasons. For whatever reason, I'm doing it this way, and it's wrong. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Just finessing this sky a little bit. That's looking pretty cool. Actually, just had an idea. I'm going to use this cosmic footage, the same cosmic footage here, and I am going to try and make a lava river kind of go between the valley here. That'd be perfect. See if that'll work. I'm going to make this a 3D image again, 3D layer. I'm going to crop a little piece out of this that kind of looks like a lava flow. I'm going to kind of stick it between these mountains here. This kind of weird miniature footage here, like the Milky Way footage, is not very complicated, but it's kind of versatile. I actually will probably make a tutorial in the future where I use that footage to make like some planets, and obviously for a sci-fi short or any kind of film, you're gonna need obviously some planets. That's kind of a must. So I'll show you how I did that. Really simple stuff. Once you, yeah, very simple stuff. So this I've flattened down. It's a 3D. It's 3D. So in a 3D space, I kind of moved, like all the layers. Basically, if you think of them as just pieces of paper, so I've basically laid this piece of paper down in between the foreground and the background here, and now it looks like a lava flow. And just tweaking here. That's looking pretty cool. All right, that looks cool, yeah. I need a name for this planet now. So there you go. My name is Dan Francis. I'm one half of the Dan Francis brothers. Yeah, if you want any different tutorials, if you'd like to know, see me make some planets out of some footage, or if you not like this at all and move on and do something else, then sure, message that or comment, leave a comment. I apologize for being have a cold, and yeah, hopefully this was informative. And as you can see, like there's no excuses now. Go out there, shoot something, slap it up on YouTube. I made this little landscape here in like half hour. You know, I could definitely have tweaked for, another good hour or two and got something that's very convincing. But right here, this is, it's a serviceable shot. This is, again, just one, it was one still frame. So have fun.